There's a 34-year-old American man named Brian living outside Phoenix making $92,000 a year. He bought his house in 2022 for $385,000 with a 30-year mortgage at 6.8% interest. His monthly payment is $2,520 just for principal and interest. Add property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and his total housing cost is $3,200 per month. Brian takes home $5,800 after taxes. Housing consumes 55% of his income before he has bought groceries, made a car payment, or paid a single other bill. He has been making this payment for 3 years. He will make this exact same payment for the next 27 years. And if he follows the normal payment schedule, by the time he makes his final payment in 2052, he will be 64 years old. He will have paid the bank $907,200 total. The house cost $385,000. He will pay $522,200 in interest alone. He will pay more in interest than the house originally cost. And for 30 years, every single financial decision he makes, every career move, every risk he considers, every life choice that costs money will get filtered through one question that runs in the background of his brain like a program he cannot close. Can I still cover the mortgage? Today, I am going to show you what actually happens to Americans when they pay off their mortgage, why most never will, and how the 30-year mortgage became the invisible prison sentence that controls your entire life without you even noticing. The numbers that destroy your life. Let me show you what the average American mortgage actually costs, because most people sign the paperwork without ever running the real math. The average mortgage payment in America in 2025 is $2,329 for principal and interest alone. For anyone who bought or refinanced at current rates, $2,845 is closer to reality. The median American household takes home $5,400 per month after taxes. That means the average mortgage payment consumes 43% of disposable income. Every financial expert on earth agrees the limit should be 28%. Most Americans with a mortgage are living 15 percentage points over that limit every single month for 30 years. Here is what that actually looks like. Brian makes $92,000 a year. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and a small 401k contribution, he takes home $5,800 per month. Mortgage payment, $2,520. Property taxes, $340. Homeowners insurance, $180. Maintenance reserve because the AC will break in July, $280. That is $3,320 per month just to legally live in the house. He has $2,480 left. Car payment, $485. Car insurance, $210. Gas, $240. Student loans, $420. Health insurance premiums, $310. Groceries, $650. Utilities, internet, phone, $380. He has negative $215 remaining. Brian is not irresponsible. He does not have a boat. He has never left the country. He is a professional American adult who did everything he was supposed to do, and every financial decision he makes for the next 27 years gets filtered through whether he can still cover the $2,520 mortgage payment. That filter disappears the day the mortgage is paid off. And when it does, something Brian cannot even imagine right now happens. He starts making completely different decisions. What this actually feels like. Let me tell you what Brian's life actually feels like, because the mortgage is not just a bill. It is a psychological weight most people carry for 30 years without realizing how heavy it is. It is lying awake on Sunday night, running the same budget math he ran last Sunday and the Sunday before that, trying to figure out if this is the month he finally gets ahead or if he just treads water again like he has for 3 years. It is his coworker casually mentioning he took a week off just because he did not feel like working, and Brian realizing he cannot do that because missing a paycheck means he cannot cover the mortgage. It is getting a job offer for work he would actually enjoy that pays $15,000 less and having to turn it down because the mortgage requires his current salary. It is wanting to start a business, but knowing one bad quarter means he loses the house, so he never starts. It is his wife asking if they can go back to school or take a sabbatical or move somewhere cheaper, and the answer always being no because the mortgage. It is every conversation about career, risk, change, or doing something meaningful getting killed by the same silent question: can we still cover the mortgage? For 30 years, that question runs in the background of his life like a tab he can never close. And the worst part, Brian doesn't even notice it anymore. It's just how life works. Until the day it stops. Why most Americans never get there. Here is the part nobody tells you when you sign a 30-year mortgage. Most Americans will never pay it off. Right now, 40% of American homeowners live in mortgage-free homes. That sounds good until you see who those people actually are. 63% of Americans over 65 are mortgage-free. Only 28% of working-age Americans are. The average American pays off their mortgage between age 58 and 63, but the median first-time homebuyer age just hit 36. A 30-year mortgage starting at 36 doesn't end until 66, 3 years into what used to be called retirement. And here's the number that should terrify everyone. In 1989, only 3% of Americans over 80 still had a mortgage. Today, nearly 30% do. The share of Americans aged 65 to 79 still carrying mortgages went from 24% to 41% in 30 years. America is dragging housing debt into retirement at a scale that has never happened before in history, and we're acting like this is normal. It's not normal. Brian bought at 34. If he follows the standard 30-year schedule, he pays off his house at 64. But here's what actually happens to most people. They don't stay in the same house for 30 years. The average American moves every 13 years. When they move, they take out a new 30-year mortgage and the clock resets. Brian will likely move in 2035. He will be 47. He'll take out another 30-year mortgage. That one ends when he's 77. If he moves again, he will die with a mortgage. Only 23% of all Americans are completely debt-free. No mortgage, no car payment, nothing. What we're talking about is genuinely rare, and the people who get there don't get there by accident. What actually happens when the mortgage ends? So what happens to the Americans who actually pay off their mortgage? Let me show you the numbers nobody explains. When Brian's mortgage disappears, his $2,520 payment is gone, but property taxes, insurance, and maintenance still exist. For a $400,000 home, that's roughly $840 per month in ongoing costs. So Brian doesn't suddenly have $2,520 to invest. He has about $1,680 in actual deployable money every month. If Brian takes that $1,680 and invests it in a basic S&P 500 index fund, earning 8% annually, here's what happens. In 5 years, $122,000. In 10 years, $306,000. In 15 years, $581,000. In 20 years, $987,000. He contributed $403,200 over 20 years. The market contributed $583,800 on top of that, more than he put in himself. The majority of his wealth came from compound interest, not from working harder. This is the part the bank doesn't tell you when you sign the 30-year mortgage. Their product is keeping you from $1 million. But the money isn't even the most important part. The most important part is what happens to Brian's brain. A 2019 study tracked what happened to Americans when their debts were completely eliminated. Anxiety dropped from 78% showing clinical symptoms to 53%. That's a 25 percentage point reduction just from closing debt accounts. People made better decisions, not felt better, actually performed better on cognitive tests. They became measurably less impulsive. But here's the finding that matters most. The number of debt accounts closed mattered more than the dollar amount. Closing a $3,000 credit card produced more psychological relief than partially reducing a $5,000 debt. The brain doesn't care about the dollar amount. It cares about the open tab. And for most Americans, the mortgage is the last open tab, the last thing humming in the background. When it closes, the noise you stopped hearing finally goes quiet. Northwestern researchers found that carrying high debt correlates with higher blood pressure, higher depression rates, and worse health, even after controlling for income. The mortgage is not just a financial obligation, it's a physiological one. Your body is carrying it, and when it's gone, your body notices. What Brian's life looks like after he pays off the mortgage. Let's say he aggressively pays it off at year 22 instead of year 30. His monthly expense floor drops by $1,680. In financial independence math, eliminating $20,160 in yearly mandatory costs reduces his FI number by $504,000. He hasn't earned more money, he hasn't gotten a promotion, he just changed what survival costs. And that number determines everything. When Brian's survival requires his full salary, he cannot leave a job he hates, take a pay cut for meaningful work, start a business that needs 18 months to become profitable, or do anything that might threaten his income. He is financially indentured, not because he's weak, because the math requires it. Research published in 2020 found that housing security led to significant increases in business formation, particularly among women and non-white Americans. A separate study found that carrying a mortgage significantly reduces entrepreneurship, with the effects strongest when the loan-to-value ratio is highest. The mechanism is obvious. Every dollar trapped in a mandatory payment is a dollar that cannot absorb risk. So what does Brian's life look like at year 22 when the mortgage is gone? He stops filtering every career decision through whether the job is stable enough to cover the payment. He takes the role with more meaning and slightly less salary because he can afford the difference now. He starts the contracting business he has been talking about since 2019 because one bad quarter no longer means he loses the house. He's not rich, his income did not change, but his decisions changed completely because the math changed completely. How to actually get there? Let me show you how Brian can actually accelerate this because the math on getting there 5 to 8 years early is more compelling than most people realize. On a $385,000 mortgage at 6.8%, Brian's standard payment is $2,520 per month. Total interest over 30 years is $522,200. He will pay more in interest than the house cost. If Brian switches to bi-weekly payments, paying half his monthly payment every 2 weeks, he makes 13 full payments per year instead of 12. That one change cuts 5 years off the loan and eliminates $98,000 in interest. If Brian throws an extra $500 per month at principal, he shortens the timeline by 8 years and kills $142,000 in interest. If Brian adds $1,000 per month, he cuts the loan term nearly in half to 16 years. None of these are heroic sacrifices. They are the difference between paying off the house at 50 versus 64. And the life you get to live at 50 with no mortgage versus the one you are living at 64 waiting for it to end is not a small difference. The truth about the mortgage. Here's what I actually want you to understand. The mortgage is not just a large bill. It is a permission slip you have to ask for every time you want to do something different with your life. Want to leave a job you hate? Check if you can still cover the mortgage. Want to start something risky? Make sure the mortgage is safe first. Want to take a pay cut to do work that matters? You cannot. The mortgage. For most Americans, for most of their adult lives, the mortgage is the invisible hand that shapes every major decision they make. Not the only hand, but the one with the tightest grip. When it is gone, the grip releases. That is what Brian discovers at year 22. That is what every American who gets there reports. Not that they are suddenly wealthy, though the compounding takes care of that in time, but that they can finally make decisions based on what they actually want rather than what the mortgage requires. That Sunday night math Brian has been running in the dark, he's not going to run it forever, but the Americans who get to stop running it earliest are not the ones who earned the most. They are the ones who understood what the finish line was actually worth and ran toward it on purpose. If this video showed you what the mortgage is actually costing you, hit that like button, subscribe for more financial breakdowns that tell the truth, and share this with someone running that same Sunday night math. I'll see you in the next one.